Hello, everybody. My name's Ben from the Geelong Chamber of Commerce, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. And a big thank you to our panelists as well, who I'll introduce shortly. I'd like to start by just acknowledging the Wathaurong traditional owners of the land upon which we stand and meet today, and all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the greater Geelong community. I pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to thank Craig and the team at Telstra Business Centre in Fenwick Street for being our webinar partner until the end of the year and supporting today's event, which has got nearly 200 registrations, which I still find outstanding. And the support from everyone each month that we run these webinars is terrific, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do and have such great panelists without that support. I'd also like to thank Catherine and the team at Cardinia International College, who are our monthly premium partner, and our platinum partner, SC Technology, and all of our corporate partners for allowing us to do the great things we're able to do at the moment. Our special guest today, in no apparent order, but Tennille, because you work for the Chamber, maybe you can go first. Tennille McInnes, General Geelong Business Awards Manager at the Chamber. Welcome, Tennille.
Thank you, Ben.
Angelique Hellman, Acting Director, Production Operations at Geelong Arts Centre. Welcome, Angelique.
Thanks, Ben.
Sam Chidgey, owner of SC Productions. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And Ryan Chamley, Director at Milk and Robot Army. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks, mate.
So all of the participants, so people listening in, we want it to be really quite casual today. So if you have any questions, please use the chat function at the bottom of the screen, the Q&A or the chat, and I'll be looking to get through those questions if I can. So Tennille, I might start with you. And you've run a lot of events with the Chamber over the last 6 months. Geez, we've run a lot of events, haven't we? And and what are some of the key things you've learnt across running online events?
Thanks, Ben. I guess the big thing for the Chamber is making sure that we have content that's relevant and up-to-date and dynamic. Certainly, if there's content that's boring in person, it's even more so in a virtual environment. That's what I've learned very quickly. And the other big element is engagement, making sure that our audience feel listened to and are included. And I guess with whether it's a physical event or a virtual event, human connection is everything. So making sure we engage the audience through poll questions, online networking, which I think we've been able to do with most of our events this year.
Yeah. And I will say it's been extraordinary at the Chamber. We're probably averaging about 600 participants in our online events each month, which likely surpasses what we used to achieve face-to-face. And my next question for you, Tennille, I suppose, is in relation to that. And how do you think people are responding to online events?
Yes, I think that everyone is getting a lot more comfortable with their technology. 4 months ago, the expectations are very different to what they are now. I guess now with events, the expectations are a lot higher because everyone is very comfortable with the technology. So it's certainly here to stay, Ben, I think.
Well, we'll get to that. We can debate that a little bit later. Thank you. And Angelique, tell us a little bit about what's going on at Geelong Arts Centre. Certainly you've had some pretty impressive innovations there.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess due to COVID, we had to look at different ways to engage with people and connect. So we shut our theatres on the 16th of March and we were able to do our first live stream on the 3rd of April. We wanted to look at ways that we could support independent artists and artists that were coming in, whether that be a show that was programmed for us that unfortunately couldn't go ahead due to COVID. And we wanted to engage with our audiences. And what was really important for us too was to be able to give our staff meaningful work. Theatres were the first to go and we'll probably be the last to come back. So it was about looking at different ways to do that. We've had 17 live stream shows since we've started doing it. We've done 2 children's shows. So we've done that. We've also looked at creative learning online content too. So what we've done there is we've worked across what schools require. So we've looked at on-demand resources for them. We turned our studio a dance studio into a recording studio. So that was a learning curve and a lot of fun. But it's been great. The artist response, especially with the live streams, they haven't had a chance to rehearse often because of COVID. So to be able to come into a space, spend the afternoon rehearsing together and then connect with the audience, which they haven't done for a long time too. They all think it's strange and weird when they first come in, but by the time they leave, they're, Penny, Ange, can we come back again? They just love it. So yeah, that's sort of what we've been doing, those two sides of online events.
And my next question is how have audience responded? But I'd like to know, obviously your usual theatre, you might get, up to 500 people sitting in the room.
Yep.
Are your audiences larger online?
It's really interesting. We watch the numbers quite regularly throughout the night, and the way we often get excited if our numbers get to 350, we go, we filled the drama theatre. That's really cool. Can we fill the Playhouse at 750? We'd like to fill Costa Hall, but there's a lot of online content out there, so there's a lot for people to choose from, which is amazing. But we've had the audience engagement has increased as we went from just live streaming to our website to actually going onto Facebook. Facebook has changed that because it allows people to engage with the marketing team at Geelong Arts Centre, with the artists. We have a stage manager set up with a screen. We're sharing across 5 different platforms, so Visit Victoria, Forte, Time Out, Melbourne and Sydney. So that audience engagement has reached the UK and Japan and America. So that's very cool. And we get lots of feedback to say, when's the next one? So yeah, I think it's been a really great experience for everybody. Yeah.
Fantastic. And it's good to see those audiences growing. We found the same thing at the Chamber as well. We thought that because there is so much content out there, we thought that it'd drop off, but that's not the case. You tend to have a pretty loyal audience once you get going, don't you?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So Sam, you've been helping us with a lot of the events at the Chamber at SC Productions. Tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
So initially we started up just probably 2 years ago, just as anything production based. So weddings, funerals, community events, ranging from audio, lighting, video, anything production spec. Obviously, this year alone, the video streaming side of things has absolutely taken off. And I mean, having to be adaptable this day and age is very important. So to be able to have a reliable stream and get your content out there for people to see is it's vital, and it's taken off.
It's all about being relevant. That's the word we hear often, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And how hard is it for a mum and dad accounting firm or small businesses to actually start developing some content and using these online platforms?
Well, Zoom is definitely one of those things that I don't think many people would have heard until this year. So things like Zoom and as you know, they're constantly updating. Everyone's probably getting an update once a week with brand new features, making it easier for everyone. So things like Zoom make it super accessible for everyone to have a webinar just as simple as this with a basic webcam set up at home. Mm-hmm. I mean, to move on to a bigger event, something like the Business Excellence Awards or something like that is another step ahead. But having these platforms, I guess, that have come in leaps and bounds this year alone has made it so much easier to get in contact with who you need to get in contact with.
Yeah. And then would you recommend making use of Facebook and some of the other social media platforms as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Facebook is great because people are already on Facebook. It's not something you need to send out another invite for, or get grandma or grandpa on a new platform that if they've already got an iPad. So you just having that there and having Facebook already accessible it's great. The only issues that are starting to arise now is some of the copyright behind things like that. So with different platforms out there, you're having different copyright, guidelines. So Facebook are moving into now with live music and copyrighted material. There's a few hoops that we might have to jump through over the next couple of months, but I think it'll be a bit more ironed out soon.
Very good. Thank you, Sam. And Ryan Chamley, tell us the difference between Milk and the legendary Robot Army Productions.
So thank you for the kind words on Robot Army. So we kind of have evolved over the last few years to where we started out doing a lot of branded work, a lot of corporate work. We've moved into television, and we got a lot of press around particularly Rusted On, which is probably what we're most known for. And then again with you, Ben, and Jen, you for Jeremy the Dad. And all of a sudden we found ourselves in a space where we were kind of trying to be everything to everyone. So, and it just wasn't gelling. So a lot of people that would normally come to Robot Army for commercial work, which is our sort of bread and butter, which allows us to go out and do things like Rusted On and create pilots and things like that. They were like, oh no, they do TV now. They're not interested in that sort of work. And I guess, look, to be honest, that was kind of the image we wanted to have for Robot Army, is that we were a television production company. And then, but then if, from a website point of view or a marketing point of view, when you've got people wanting to come to us for that television work, and then they're seeing branded and corporate work, they're like, oh, maybe they're not. So we're kind of in this weird middle ground where we're trying to be everything to everybody, when we're like, wow, we've got 3-4 credits now across Netflix with Robot Army. Let's just dedicate that solely to that. We'll start Milk, which can be all branding. So now it's just very clear if you want. And even with our SEO, with Milk, it's going to be straight branded as a corporate advertising company. And Robot Army is just more for our creative pursuits, and more so for that production world.
Very good. Very good. Ryan, I'll come back to you because I want to ask Tennille first. And the reality is that you're providing the live streaming support for the awards. So I might just ask Tennille to touch on the awards for us to get us started. What's involved in taking something as huge as the Geelong Business Excellence Awards from face-to-face to online, Tennille? Yeah.
It's certainly been an enormous shift for my colleague Kathy and I. We've certainly had to relearn everything. We've essentially unwrapped the physical components of the event piece by piece, and then determined whether it's going to work in a virtual setting. And we've undertaken a lot of research by engaging specialists with the likes of Ryan and Sam, for instance. And I've watched endless amount of online awards programs on YouTube. And from that, just observing what works and what doesn't, and seeing how we can adapt that for this year's awards. But our focus really is how do we generally connect with the audience and make sure they feel part of the event.
Yeah. And Ryan, what kind of technology and how do you do it differently in terms of moving from a platform such as Zoom to now live streaming? And there is a lot involved, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Look, it's quite exciting for me. Like we've always sort of liked pushing the envelope and doing stuff that, not a lot of other people are doing, or to the extent, and just learning new things and challenging ourselves. So, I mean, initially when Tennille and the team came to us with the awards, we were like, well, that sounds like a perfect opportunity to really, like, we've done a lot of live stuff with Rusted On. We had live cameras on set. We had fans interacting with actors, and we've had a lot of Q&As before. But in terms of a multi-camera and bringing in, pre-recorded assets and doing a whole thing, we knew how to do it. But to really say to someone with such an important event, yes, we're going to do it, we've had to do a lot of research into more around the stability and what could go wrong, as opposed to what, I mean, essentially it's just kind of like what we're always doing, but it's just live. So from that point of view, we've been in the game for 10 years. So that side of it is pretty, is pretty standard to us, but the whole side of internet lag, trying to have people, people calling from home, accepting awards and all this other stuff, that's been quite a learning experience, but quite a fun one for us anyway. I think Tennille and Kathy, it's been quite stressful as we sort of piece through it. But I think, really finding the technology that works best. And I think it's been such a black art for so long. Now that there are platforms like Facebook and YouTube that have incredibly reliable servers, whereas before you were relying on, a full van with a satellite out the front of the venue with, hundreds of cables going in and out, to be able to essentially do it from your phone at a quality that is what they were, using for the Grammys or the Emmys 10 years ago is pretty exciting.
And Tennille touched on it earlier, but do you think the really key thing with online is to use good content to engage with the audience?
Absolutely, content is king. You can pour millions of dollars into advertising. You can pay, designers millions of dollars. But if your content sucks, then it's just not going to get traction. And that's just been proved time and time again by campaigns that spend no money and they go viral. And we've had 2 of them ourselves. And you even look at, Bunnings Warehouse, for example, we're working with them at the moment. How much would they spend a year on marketing and advertising? But all they needed was one person to go nuts at one of their store people about not wearing a mask, a Karen, if you will. That went viral. That's done more advertising for them than anything they could spend money on. That kind of advertising you just can't buy. So there's a real kind of like a niche market here where it's changing, but content is king. You've got to have good content, otherwise spend your money elsewhere.
And Angelique, you guys have had fantastic content supporting all those independent artists over your 17 events. But what do you see as the biggest challenge moving forward?
I think the biggest challenge initially was going from doing what we knew, which was a live theatre. We're good at live theatre, that's what we do. We didn't have any broadcasting experience. So the challenge for us was probably just in those 2 weeks to get that up and running, making sure, talking to local suppliers about what equipment to use. We didn't own a camera. Getting the team upskilled, which they were super passionate about. They saw it as an opportunity that this is what we can do while this pandemic's going on. I don't think any of us thought that it would last as long as it has initially, but it's been great. So the challenge, I think, was going from live theatre to broadcasting. I think the internet scares me. It's probably the only thing, like Ryan mentioned, that you don't have control over. We've got backup plans for just about everything, but that does scare me a little bit. So that can be a challenge. But yeah, that's probably, I think each week has been great that the team have wanted to make the production values better. So they've had to learn how to use cameras, how to do different lighting. That was really interesting. Our lighting team with theatre, it's very different when you translate it onto watching it at home on a screen. So that was a really big learning curve for us to get that right. And I look at it now and I look at the first few streams and to sort of where we've got to, and our camera transitions are better, our camera placements are better, the lighting is looking amazing. So I think that was a little challenge, but it wasn't a negative challenge. It was a positive challenge for us, yeah.
And over the next 12 months, as you mentioned, it's likely it'll be a while before you do go back to being able to put 700 people in a room. That's
yep.
for sure. So what are you planning over the next 12 months?
So a few things. We're working with some organisations in Geelong to collaborate on some more live streaming events before the end of the year. So there's a couple of good ones coming up. So that's exciting. We're also, our Creative Engine program is about independent artists coming in and rehearsing and developing new work. So we'll be able to record them, and that helps them to be able to go out and get funding and send their work overseas. We'll be doing that. And we're also looking at, depending on capacities, because it is a moving puzzle, we're looking at, do we have a show, but at the same time, do we sell a ticket and live stream it to be able to get more of an audience in, or people that don't have that confidence to step back into a theatre immediately, which is understandable. So we're looking at exploring different ways to bring our capacity up within the COVID restrictions by maybe streaming and having live theatre in a space. So, yeah.
Terrific. Now, Sam, I've got a question from the audience for you, I think. And Margaret's asking, what's the difference between using Zoom and Facebook?
Look, I guess to put it simply, Zoom is, I guess, there's a maximum amount of attendees in Zoom. It's quite private, quite intimate. In a webinar like this, I mean, you can have up to, I think, 1,000 or even sometimes 10,000, but it's a very, I guess, a conference-based sort of professional application. Whereas Facebook, I would probably use more for like GPAC and all their music, music and all the drama performances and all that. So I think just the demographic of the different applications. In saying that, I think what I touched on before earlier on Facebook, I think over the next few months that they're going to be looking at the copyright on that. So there may need to be a switch in the whole live streaming community and moving over to something like YouTube or Vimeo, just based on copyright. So I think over the next few months, I guess, yeah, it's going to be watch this space.
And Ryan, YouTube and Vimeo, pardon me, you're hoping to utilise those to broadcast the awards, aren't you?
Yeah, so that's more of a backup for Facebook. So I think Facebook is definitely king in terms of where people already are, and the way you can comment and share. You can really have something blow up quite quickly. I think the copyright thing's a tricky one though, because it's more so and from my understanding, it's more so from a company responsibility way as well. So I know a lot of times, if you're going to play a movie or a song at a public event, you actually legally should be paying royalties for it. But who does? But now that it's actually going through a platform like Facebook, I think a lot of people were unaware that you even had to pay money for that kind of performance royalties and stuff like that. So I think it's more about working on a more accessible fee structure for using copyright, or making copyright rights accessible for people at events, as opposed to taking months to get rights. And I mean, the actual figures are crazy too. Like for one of our shows, we tried to use Sounds of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. We weren't even playing the track. It was just somebody was singing the tune, and it was different lyrics. It was going to cost us $12,000 for about 10 seconds worth. So I think that the shift needs to be really at an industry level to make it accessible, as opposed to, people doing it without permission, so to speak.
Ah, very good. And to Neil, I'll come back. There's a question from the audience to Neil, if you don't mind. And that is, do you recommend live streaming or face-to-face, or a combination of both?
Definitely a combination of both in the ideal world. I mean, ideally we would have loved the awards to be a physical event. That way, I mean, everyone loves networking and interacting with each other. But in terms of accessibility, I like the aspect of incorporating a virtual element as well to include more people that wouldn't otherwise be able to attend.
So you think moving forward that online events in an integrated capacity with face-to-face are here to stay?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. And our experience in online events this year is certainly equipped us to prepare for that for next year. I really hope we do it.
Yeah. And Angelique, your experience at finding new audiences, would you feel the same, that even when you can go back to face-to-face, you'll still have an online component?
Sure. I think there will be an online component for the same reasons that Tennille has mentioned. I guess we're all keen to get back to live theatre because that's our joy and what we want to get back to. But I think I think after this pandemic, it's made everybody have to look at doing things differently. And I think it's, if you can take a positive out of it, is that everyone's learnt more skills. Everyone's learnt a different way to view something, to engage, to be a part of something. So I think there will be a future. Yeah, to what level? I'm not sure.
Sam, for smaller businesses who want to start dabbling in the online space, how can your organisation, how can they get in contact, and what sort of cost can they expect?
Yeah, look, every event, I guess, is different. Whether we run, just a single camera, if it's just I've done a lot of funerals and a lot of weddings of recent, so that's it's quite cheap to do just a single camera. I'll come out with a little 4G modem and share it to a private Facebook page. They've been great. Families really appreciate that, and it's we're always flexible. Whether it's one camera or 10 cameras or slideshow incorporations. There's so many different ways that we can do it, or we can just keep it simple. Sometimes people just want to be there and see something. It doesn't need to be a super duper production and super expensive. So we're super flexible with and cater to every need really. So yeah, if you want to get in contact, jump on my Facebook, and I've got a few examples up there of what we've done in the past, and I'd be more than happy to help with any business in Geelong.
Yep. And Ryan, the guys at Milk, how do they get in contact, and what sort of entry points can you provide for businesses?
Yeah, so we sort of look at, I guess, advertising right through from concept development right through to delivery. So a lot of we work as one part agency, one part, I guess, content creators as well, and try and really take out a lot of the middle management people where you're dealing with the same faces the whole time. I mean, it's taken a long time to kind of develop our processes. We've been, like I said, nearly around for 10 years. So made a lot of mistakes on the way. Just your kids out there with a camera trying to get it done. But look, you can get us on all the socials. We've got a website, milkvideo.com.au, Facebook, Instagram. And I mean, we're connected to most people in the chamber at some way. So just give us a call.
Very, very good. And we've got a message from the great man, John Momonsky, that Angelique, it's your birthday today.
Yes, thanks, John. Appreciate that.
Happy birthday. And on that note, I'd like to thank everyone for participating today. As I said before, the meeting, you always want more time. We could probably talk for a couple of hours on this, but hopefully it's given people a bit of an insight into how to run online events by the people that are actually doing it. So congratulations to you all for the work that you've done. And thank you to all of our participants for being with us today. We'll now post it on social media over the coming days so that you can share it and hopefully others can watch it as catch up. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.